Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. My name is Isaias Hernandez. I am the Senior Strategic Partner here at Green Jobs Board, and we're so privileged for you all to be here at the Green Jobs Pavilion. And why don't we actually go around with our panelists and maybe briefly introduce yourself and also understand why a circular economy is needed in your specific industry, and even sharing some of the issues that the industry that you're in today has.
I'm Michael Hirschhorn. I founded and lead MEBL Transforming Furniture. We're all about furniture for the future, which is we're an online resource hub for professionals in the furniture industry, and it's all about accelerating the practices of the industry towards circular economy practices. So an example is there's an association with furniture that comes flat packed that's inexpensive. Why can't that be applied towards high-end furniture? Because if it's flat packed, then the carbon footprint for shipping is 1/10. You think about how many more chairs you can fit into a truck or tables or cabinets if they're flat packed. Other practices in the industry, toxicity of adhesives, the waste stream, as Christy said, and much more we'll get into.
Hi, my name is Alecia in Vanderbilt. I am with ProTek Recycling, so we specialize in electronics recycling. So anybody have an iPhone or a phone, that's electronics. And I primarily work within the commercial real estate division. I oversee over 200 million square feet. So think Empire State Building, Chrysler Building, all of the computers in there, all of the monitors in there, and across like over 300 buildings, we're taking that out and we're recycling it. And businesses obviously use the most amount of electronics, like what you have at home pales in comparison to what your companies have. So the biggest issue is that, we need to make sure that it doesn't go into a landfill. They're filled with a lot of metals, a lot of commodities, gold, silver, palladium, cobalt. And so we had to rip up the earth to do that, and to have manufacturers of these piece of equipment. They want you to put it into a landfill, but you can recapture 100% of all those metals by recycling it. So that's what we specialize in. That's what we promote. And I think a lot of people have an awareness, but they're just not sure what to do with it and how to do it. So, and so that's what we're tackling. And that's what we're achieving throughout the East Coast of America.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danii Mcletchie. I am the CEO and co-founder of Carnicycle. We're an organization that's working to make Caribbean carnivals and festivals more sustainable. And we do that through 3 ways. We do that through education, waste management, and consulting. So our flagship initiative is costume recycling, where we recycle different carnival costumes, which was a very niche type of waste stream that we identified through Carnival. One of the biggest challenges is the way the industry is set up. So each year, new costumes are designed, but you can't use the same costume from the various carnivals that happen in one year or to the next year. So our solution with costume recycling allowed us to basically take the costumes, break them down into their raw materials, which include textiles, these acrylic plastic gems, and animal feathers even, and then resell them back into the industry. And then most recently, we started even renting the costumes. So we're on a mission to just continuously find solutions to our industry's problems and kind of prove that our culture can intersect with sustainability and everybody wins.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Kelly. I'm an environmental compliance coordinator for a reverse logistics group. And basically what we focus on is making waste management more circular. So we focus on the environmental compliance side with different policies. And we do data management platforms that we have for different companies that we work with. And we also have different take back programs. We work with a lot of different waste streams to make sure that things like batteries, e-waste, packaging has become big in the United States. We have over 80 offices around the globe, so we all kind of localize all of the knowledge that we have and the data that we have to make sure that we have the most circular economies possible and kind of build those resources for different companies.
I absolutely love how everyone is on this panel, because I think that when we think of these different industries, we often think, oh, that can't be circular. Oh, that can't be made in a more sustainable way. It's even in data that the next big thing in our economies is going to be circularity, is going to be the reinvestment of consumers, of people wanting to change business practices for the better of the planet. And Michael, I want to talk about the furniture industry because when I think about furniture, I always think about IKEA. And I often think about, well, it's not really the best furniture out there in the planet, but we're not here to talk about them. I want to talk more about the larger industry itself. I know you talked a little bit more about, some of the issues with the toxins that are used, but what role it has in contributing to emissions, but also some of the visions that your company does to focus on that sustainable furniture industry.
So the heart of what we do is webinars, seminars, action guides. It's learning opportunities for professionals who are in the furniture industry. And there's a huge waste problem, but I'm going to talk about a different side of it, which is the manufacturing. We focus heavily on design because as Christy was saying when she did her introductory remarks, the way furniture or anything is designed from day one has everything to do with what's going to happen to it down the line. Here's 3 concrete examples of that. You mentioned IKEA. You go to IKEA, you buy a bookshelf. It comes to you, it's flat pack, which actually is a great practice, right? For the reason I said before. And you get instructions, albeit complex, albeit hard to follow, but they're instructions about how to assemble it. But they don't send you instructions on how to disassemble it. So that when you're interested in, you move out of your apartment, you get your first opportunity to live in a home, and you borrow your friend's car, and it doesn't fit into the car as a bookshelf, and so much of this furniture ends up on the curb, because simply it's not. It's designed for assembly, but it's not designed for disassembly. A second example of that is like applying principles of design so that the furniture industry is more circular, follows more circular practices, is components and modularity. Let's say you have a sofa and the dog scratches up the armrest. A lot of people, in the end, you get rid of the sofa. Companies today are designing them such that it's a revenue stream for the company that they sell replacement arms, they sell replacement legs, they make it so the furniture, you can replace the component part without having to scrap the entire piece of furniture. That's a design approach to thinking about a circular practice so that it greatly reduces waste. And a third example on the theme of modularity is furniture that's built in a way that you can shift its arrangement, its setup in a room, so that if you live in one apartment now, one home now, and it fits to be a sofa that's aligned, if it's in component pieces, then you can rearrange it to be an L shape or a U shape, and a lot more to talk about. But
yeah. No, I absolutely love that. And, actually, I definitely have never really thought about the disassembly things. I usually would call my parents and be like, how do you disassemble this? Because I'm trying to move out of my apartment. And I think that's such an issue today, is like the lack of consumer education that's being, like, these industries are not really providing us with these types of resources, these types of initiatives to do that. And this kind of goes into, the work that you're also tangentially doing in the circular economy field, Danii, is like on tackling the environmental impact of these recycled costumes that obviously represent a huge cultural narrative for so many communities. Can you share more about, what that process actually looks like? Because when you see these like beautiful festivals, like those pieces took hours to make. They're not made within an hour or 2 hours, even days or months, I would assume.
Yeah, really good point. These costumes are essentially like wearable art, right? There is a lot of work that goes into the costumes. Unfortunately, as Carnival has become commercialized, so now there's over 150 Carnival type events globally. They've sought ways to kind of produce these faster. And that entails like not producing them as much locally anymore. Only certain aspects of the costumes are produced locally, but a lot of them are outsourced to China and India, and they're shipped in the country. That being said, the costumes are not made in the most structural integral way. So these costumes are all assembled with hot glue, essentially. Previously, they would have been sewed and hand sewed. So we got some costumes that were recycled from someone who kept them from like 20 years ago. Each bead was intact because it was like hand sewed. But now that everything is basically hot glued together, they don't even last the day of the carnival. As soon as you take them out the packaging, they all kind of just fall apart. That does make it easier in a way for us to recycle, though. And the recycling process is a collaborative one. So we partner with industry stakeholders, so the people who actually sell the carnival costumes, as well as tourism stakeholders. So like the hotels where the masqueraders, which are people who wear the costumes, stay in. And we set up collection bins at the festival with the mass bands, which are the people who sell the costumes, and at the hotels where people stay. And so we'll run collection for about a week, and we'll run collection throughout the day of the festival. And then after that process of collecting it, we will then send it to our seasonal workers that we hire during the season for them to break everything down with cleaning agents that we kind of trialed and errored because nobody has ever done this on a commercial level. So we just basically had to figure out what's the best way to take these materials apart and keep them in a form that is sellable after. After we take it apart, clean it, then we resell them. Some of the things we resell are the gems here, which are pretty cheap in the States, but in the Caribbean, they're expensive. Like one gem could be like $1 US, basically, depending on the size. And we also resell animal feathers, which could be like $10 US for one feather. So we are able to resell them for a third of the price and sell them back to the designers who create the costumes, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but throughout the rest of the Caribbean region. And it is very much a collaborative process because we don't do it on our own. Yeah.
No, I mean, I love this. And I think this is why it's so important to kind of shine the light of like how delicate yet particular these jobs are really important for our economy because it's opening new pathways. And this kind of segues to our next question to Alecia is that at ProTek Recycling, you are creating new opportunities for businesses to recycle and that it shouldn't be limited by cost and location. And I know myself working at a previous recycling company, oftentimes those are barriers for a lot of consumers. So I'd love for you to kind of share more about those hurdles in the industry and how you fill that gap.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so nobody really likes to spend money to throw things out. It's just kind of like a vibe. And so, when you're throwing away your soda can and there's a recycling bin, sure, throw it in there. It didn't cost you anything. If they actually charge you 25 cents, none of us would probably do it. And the same thing goes for electronics. And across every type of electronics recycling program throughout cities and states, municipalities, they actually do make it punitive. And they say all of these companies and, even your neighborhoods, if you want to have like a neighborhood e-waste recycling day, you got to pay for it and you got to pay heavily for it. And so ProTek is one of the first companies who ever invented a program that was workable where we don't charge, right? And a lot of it's by gaming it, right? So we don't just go in and pick up stuff from Bank ABC. Like we go to the Chrysler building, we say, Chrysler building, give us all your e-waste all at once, right? And so we're able to then make it free for the whole commercial building and for all the companies inside of the building because now we're picking up from 1.2 million square feet of companies and e-waste, and we're not just sending a truck to pick up Bank ABC stuff, which only has a couple things. And so what that's doing is it's filling that gap and it's saying we're not going to make it punitive for you companies, but make it good for us. Like we need to fill some trucks. We just paid a whole crew to come. And so that is the solution inside of that. And that's one of the reasons why ProTek has like taken fire throughout the commercial real estate industry and why we're from Boston down to Philly. And we just expand and expand because we're the first guys who said, hey, like if we charge you $10,000 to pick up a handful of computers, you're not going to do it. And they really do. Like I've been on phone calls where they say, oh, Alecia, I'll just throw it in the trash. And they really will. And there's nobody policing the dumpster bins in any of our cities or states, even though there might be laws. So unless the trash police were invented and they start going in and finding out whose computer it is and start giving tickets, people are just going to go for the easiest solution. So this one is easy and it's concierge level and it's free and free and free and free. And so that's super helpful for most of the companies and creates that solution that is really unique, but is a rarity and still needs to be addressed because there are other e-waste companies who do charge, but they are trying to make, money because you got to send trucks to people. If it goes into the landfill, 70% of hazardous waste is being produced in our landfill from the electronics that we're throwing out. And it is absolutely criminal to think about. There's gold, there's silver, there's metal, there's steel, and we're taking it out of the earth. We're making these beautiful electronics, and all the companies just want you to throw it back into a landfill. Like, that is absolute bananas. And kind of to speak to what Michael talked about, they're at a manufacturing level, they're trying to make it so that you can't refurbish it, you can't replace it, and they're trying to make sure that you have to even shred it down to the lowest common denominator if you try to recycle it, which is not as cost effective. And so we do need a lot more help in the manufacturing level of electronics so that it can be recycled in the most sustainable way, reused in the most sustainable way. So those are some of the problems that we're trying to solve as a whole throughout the company.
Absolutely. I think we need more raccoons protecting those waste bins from people trying to dump their waste on there. And I definitely think that it's so true of like the convenience of, consumers not understanding the true value of what they're paying to ensure that, these industries are really making sure to clean up those messes that would often just lend to landfills and contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. Kristen, I have a question on reverse logistics. You all offer a variety of products to make a circular economy. And can you share more about those product categories that your company focuses on and why you decided on those specific categories in that industry?
Yeah. So, waste management, we've been in the industry for a very long time, and we realize that there are a lot of different components that are needed, from the environmental compliance with our comply loop, and we have data management platforms that we use. We also have manage different take back programs and have different operation teams that we work with, different MRFs or recovery facilities. And kind of that's how we maintain this circular approach. Like we said, we kind of it all really does start with the policies, with what is required of different producers, with different policies. In the United States, e-waste was huge, like 10 years ago, and now we're with the clients that we work with, we've kind of gone into as much a flow as possible, and now we're bringing that into packaging, which has really taken off, especially on the West Coast with 7 states there. So really just making sure that, we kind of, with all of the expertise that we have, especially with the environmental compliance and data management that we have for our customers, just making sure that, we have the capacity to localize that and, keep it circular, and making sure that, a lot of EPR laws are focusing on producers taking on those costs. So we try and make it as easy as possible, so that, there's no excuse, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that a lot of us here are really understanding like the problems in this industry and like, the problem identification, what is wrong with our systems. And also, like you said, the policies that, when these industries were created, they didn't really think about the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years of like, oh, I don't think it's going to be a massive waste issue. Yeah, there'll probably some waste. And now it's like the consequences of not having a policy that was being done during that time to us trying to catch up, and different states and different cities having different regulations. It creates a web and array of sometimes sticky issues. And Michael, I wanted to talk about like, the visions that MEBL has to have furniture that cleans air, catches the sun, and stores carbon. Because when I hear that, I'm like, wait, a couch can do that? I thought a plant can only do that. And is this, like kind of like wacky science fiction, or would you say it actually is being designed to proactively address climate change, and also like going back to how furniture was made back then?
If I can, I'm going to take a second. You mentioned how big the problem is. Quick story. I'm very moved. This is my son, who took a couple hours off from college today to come to Dad's panel. 2 years ago, his twin sister moved out of her dorm at college, and we were moving into, so we went up to Boston, mom, my son, twin sister, me, we went up to Boston. We had a 3-day weekend to get her moved into her first time ever apartment, off-campus apartment. I'm up there full of hubris, like, I'm the king of circularity in furniture. That's what I do for a living. This will be easy. I'm going to keep hitting you. We're gonna take care of this in 3 days. We're gonna furnish this entire apartment with reused furniture. With furniture made from quality materials, and it was the hardest thing ever. It was expensive. It was difficult, and finally, on the last day, we ended up at Target, which is the enemy of the people when you're trying to promote sustainability in furniture. And we're to buy a bookcase. We could not find one. And this guy pulls out his iPhone and he takes this picture of me at Target with the big sign in the background, Target. and he says, now I've got you. I can blackmail you whenever I want because you do anything wrong. You don't give me what I want. I'm going to show this to your entire eco-friendly industry. So anyway, a big part of what we do is try to promote innovation in furniture. And when there's new design schemes, we want to get the word out. We do interviews with the change makers, the inventors. And Isaias, that goes back to what you said. Yes, they're highly innovative designers who are looking at furniture design and saying, not only can we get it past, you might say, a passive state of being less bad, but it can actually be an active state of contributing towards a climate-aligned future, meaning benches that have photovoltaic cells so that they're actually capturing sunlight and generating electricity, curtains that do the same. You're talking about certain materials that can absorb carbon and can convert them into minerals. This is all it's at a prototype stage, but it's not science fiction. It really is a very pragmatic future. And it's the kind of new ideas that we're in business to get the word out on.
Thank you for sharing that. I definitely think we need more blackmailing in the other side of the industry too. No, just kidding. But this goes into this idea, okay, of like, yes, we have the solutions. They're happening. They're moving forward. The policies, the practices, the initiatives. But I think what's really important is understanding that process of creating those secondary jobs. I wouldn't even call them secondary, like those primary jobs now. And Danii, I wanted to ask you, like, can you walk us through that process it took to create part-time jobs at your company? Because I think that is something where when we talk about scalability and sustainability, it's often people try to see it as contradictory, but it's possible.
Well, the industry of making carnival costumes requires people and requires jobs. So there's going to be jobs that are created to make the costumes, to sell the costumes, to, make sure the costumes are compliant. When it comes to recycling, in any industry, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to create new jobs because now there's this whole new process that never existed before, and I can't do it on my own. So we're going to need some people to help me out. So in the last 2 years, I've been working with this local nonprofit called Spool Garment Factory to teach women who aren't able to get regular jobs due to their immigration status. We have a lot of Venezuelan migrants coming over to Trinidad and Tobago because of the economy. Their dollar has weakened due to the corrupt government, and a lot of them have fled to Trinidad and Tobago to find a better opportunity. So for the last 2 years, we've worked to train over 40 women how to basically design costumes from recycled material and subsequently take apart costumes and clean it through our cleaning process. And since then, we've been able to hire 6 people out of that program to actually recycle for us after each carnival. So there are 2 carnivals in Trinidad and Tobago, one in February, one in October, and now we have those women on standby to process hundreds of costumes after each carnival. Not only that, we have great partnerships again with the people who are transporting the costumes from the festival to our warehouses. We partner with local people who we purchase the collection bins from. And so we're providing income for different players in the space because now recycling is part of the industry. And so as we continue to grow, we've recycled over 10,000 costumes thus far, and that doesn't even scratch the surface. We're going to anticipate creating more part-time jobs and eventually full-time jobs for people as this recycling industry grows.
Wow, I absolutely love that. And I think that, one of the things that often people try to say is like, oh, Americans don't recycle, recycling is useless. And to me, I kind of counter and push back against that narrative because I think we have devalued waste collectors or people who are upcycling what would be traditionally used as waste for a secondary economy or circular economy. And to me, I think it's about providing that economic justice for those who have often been not given the same amount of opportunities as other communities in those areas. And Alecia, that's kind of goes into the next question of the recycling system and industry is like, what changes and solutions would you like to see to create more opportunities in this industry, but also like the services that your business offers, whether it's mail-in or drop-off, and how those costs are associated to customers and what their responses have been, because it's also different for individuals versus, corporations or industries.
Thank you so much. So I think for the electronics world, and I think it's incredibly important for us to really be paying attention because now we're all like AI, right? AI. Well, AI is being powered by huge buildings like this filled with electronics called servers, right? And servers upon servers, and they're going to be like farms of these pieces of electronics, and that's what's making this happen. So it's incredibly important for us to understand how important electronics is on a circular economy because it's also metals. Metals have infinite ability to be melted down and remade. So we don't want to take it out of the earth and then put it into a landfill where we can't retrieve it. We want to actually reuse it again and again if it's possible. So, and I think one of the things we really have to understand is that none of these Apples or Microsofts or any of the manufacturers have really any motivation to make it possible for this stuff to last 10 years. They have every motivation to have it only last for 1 to 2 years. They want you to throw it out. They have no motivation to make sure that you can refurbish it, that you can open it up and reuse parts, because the more you can do that, the less money they make. And so there has to be a lot more regulation for all of these companies across the board to make sure that what they're producing can be reused, can be refurbished, can be refixed, and unless the entire population comes together and demands it, there's no way to beat out Apple or Microsoft. These guys are billion-dollar corporations and they have more power than entire countries. So there has to be a humongous revolution around that if we want to see substantial change, and because it is in their interest for us to not really be able to reuse most of it. And we have to have that real clear understanding. And, some of the solutions that we have where it's, if you're an individual, there aren't good programs for individuals to recycle your electronics. I think you have the really great stuff where you can trade in to your Verizon, right? Newsflash, they're reselling it. So they are making money when you do it. So it's actually good, but keep that in mind that you want to try to make sure that your stuff is going into those streams. But what do you do with your TV? Most people put it on the curb, and you have to also see what the municipality offers in terms of those things. We have e-boxes, and e-boxes are primarily served for the companies, again, because, when everybody went remote and there's somebody in Texas and there's somebody in Utah and they all have company equipment, well, how do we do it? And there's a cost associated to mail it in, but it's actually just the cost of shipping. The recycling part, we totally absorb, but e-waste is heavy. And they won't ship it for free. So if you want to get it recycled through our facility or any others, the typical cost that you're looking at is always trying to get it shipped from point A to point B. So if you're trying to be environmental, try to look for your most local resource, the closest thing. And anybody who works in an office building, at least one day a week, right? You can always bring in your electronics, and there's someone in the building or in the company who has a solution for you to be able to bring it. I realize your printer, your 3-in-1, you're probably not carting into your office under your arm, but there are solutions out there so that it doesn't land in just like a drawer in your house forever, and that it won't land in a landfill. So there are those solutions, but I think the overarching understanding is like there's too much valuable stuff in what we have inside of our electronics across the board. I mean, think about, there's actual gold. There really is gold in there. So we want to try to recapture it. There's no question it should not be linear under any circumstances. So that would be my overarching thing, and that we all need to really start putting the pressure on our governments to make sure that this stuff has to last and has to be recaptured 100%.
I agree, and I think that was my same kind of issue when I worked at Terracycle many years ago in Jersey, and like I felt that industries had a large role to reduce their emissions, and it's also good for the sustainability impact that they have actually a plan to manage their waste responsibly and work with secondary, tertiary partners, municipalities, to make sure that that waste is actually being handled effectively, because that reduces their own emissions as a company on that end. The last question, and we'll try to keep it short for Kristen, is, measuring data is so essential to tracking climate change and progress in our economies today. In your work, where some areas where essential data seems to be missing, what needs to be more measured with more precision, you would say?
I work in the compliance loop, which focuses a lot on the data management side of things. And I'll kind of keep it specific. Since packaging, EPR laws has been taking over my life recently. I'll use that as an example, but a lot of what we're seeing and what we're trying to kind of help with is that these reporting systems don't need to be made from scratch. And that can be difficult for different companies to have to do. Then you miss a lot of things. So you could be reporting, what you're putting into the market, but you're not really seeing where is that going in the long run. So a lot of the data that we're really trying to work on is, and especially, like the different producer responsibility organizations that really have to kind of focus on these responsible end markets, basically, just being able to audit them and, having different take back programs is a huge task. And, it's tough to have to, collect all of that data from a bunch of you're getting different reports from different producers and, different state policies. So that's kind of where we're seeing like the largest gaps, and kind of how we're tackling that is by, with our different offices that we have. Canada, this is nothing new to them. But so, we offer different like auditing services to them that we're trying to bring into the U.S. to kind of make that a little more, a little bit easier for different producer responsibility organizations on kind of all levels, not just the producer, to be able to fill that gap as efficiently as possible.
When we're talking about circular economy, I think there's a diverse strategies that industries are using, both from going back to its original roots, providing accessible guides, to ensuring that there's cooperations with businesses. And I really recommend that each and every one of you kind of takes away key points that circular economy jobs don't look alike. They're all going to have different strategies and different solutions. Please give a large round of applause to our speakers, and please connect with them after. They'll be out on the side. Thank you so much, everyone.